All right, we're live. What is up, Andrew?
Good morning, Richard.
So I've created a brand new thumbnail for our loyal following of thousands of fans right now watching this show. Quite, you know, back to back live. We're gonna be doing these Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern and covering quick, short topics. Probably covering them within about 20, 30, probably 20 minutes or less, I would imagine, at the rate that we're going to chop through these. I've had some people ask about, hey, can you cover this thing that so-and-so said and that thing that others said? And there's lots of things that we can dive into, which we'll reserve, for upcoming episodes. But in this one, we wanted to cover bankruptcy scams in Canada is what I titled this. You've seen this for a while. Has there been a rise in this?
I wouldn't say there's been a rise. The point is that there's a lot of scrupulous practices in any industry you get into, and when you get companies suggesting that they're going to be helping you with their debt, and they mislead you into which type of program they're enrolling you into, and you're not aware of the options, you're not aware of what you're actually getting involved in because they're not giving you truth or accurate information, that's where I believe we need to touch off on and how it can damage people's,
Okay.
situations and credit.
All right. So before we go down the rabbit hole, let's just say this first. One, we are a fan of bankruptcy solutions when it's appropriate. There's two main solutions that trustees offered. It's a licensed practice under the Insolvencies Act in Canada. And when we're broadcasting on this topic today, we're speaking explicitly to the Canadian market. So this is unique to Canada. It's a good solution when you're severely insolvent, meaning you owe a hell of a lot more than what you own, and it is a legit way to get out of debt. It's not always the best way, but it does work, and we support bankruptcy trustees and what they do. With that being said, there's a lot of guys out there that will advertise services that are not explicitly stated to be bankruptcy or to be a consumer proposal, but they use language that's kind of loose around that to attract an audience and to make promises to purport certain outcomes, which are offered by a bankruptcy trustee. And I mean, to kind of sum it up in a simple way, like they'll just fill out a form to get the ball rolling and walk you across the hallway to a trustee in some cases, but not all. But what is the process like? Start with what the offer looks like, and without naming names, because we don't want to, we don't go there, but what are the typical catchphrases and what does the offer look like to the Canadian public when they're seeing these opportunities to get out of debt in fast and easy ways that are not bankruptcy?
Well, I'll give you the example of myself. I received in the mail a couple of weeks ago a flyer with my weekly, local advertisements for local businesses and the usual supplies or services that people may be looking for: duct cleaning, windows, doors, driveway paving, just the usual stuff you get on a weekly basis. And in this flyer, or bundles of flyers, I got one from a company offering debt help. And it's a company that I've obviously heard of before, a rather substantial size business or named business. And the flyer was very loose, as you indicated in your subject just minutes ago. Loose topics, loose information, doesn't specify what exactly they're offering or how they can help, just that they can help and they can get people's debts eliminated. So I figured I'd reach out. To the individual on the flyer, pose as a potential customer or a potential individual looking for help with their debt, and back and forth for a couple of days. Ultimately, it ended in the individual kind of misleading into which type of service it was going to be. He indicated it was a settlement plan, but ultimately he confirmed and confessed it was a consumer proposal. So completely misleading, saying that we're going to get you into a settlement plan for a monthly payment of X dollars over a 60-month term, but yet it was a consumer proposal arrangement administered under the Bankruptcy Insolvency Act by a licensed trustee in Canada. So
did the flyer or the ad itself say avoid bankruptcy?
I believe so. I believe so, because
which is so bizarre because both the services are offered by a bankruptcy trustee and they're actually viewed. I mean, in actuality, a consumer proposal takes longer, and I'd argue probably does more damage to the credit rating than a full-on bankruptcy does, because you're discharged a lot quicker, you're out of debt, you can start to rebuild faster. But the way that I've seen the marketers use the language is it's like avoid bankruptcy, or new program that helps you avoid bankruptcy, or get out of debt without bankruptcy, or something like that. But the problem with the consumer proposal is it takes longer, it often costs more money, and the trustee makes more money at it at the same time, which also allows the, I don't know what we're going to call them, the
middlemen.
The middleman, let's just call them the middleman to make some money during the process. Because I think what they usually do, because we talked to trustees about this a couple of times over the last 15, 20 years that, Total Debt Freedom has been running. And because they can't pay a referral fee to somebody that brings business to them, I think what they've allowed them to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because I think you're a lot more connected than I am today with this, but they would let you charge either the first 1 to 3 consumer proposal payments up front before the trustee would administer the plan. Like they would get the first 1 to 3 payments or something.
I'm not sure if it's up front, but from what I've seen on documentation and paperwork, the proposal will be reduced from a 60-month plan down to a 57-month plan. So the creditors get the share of the 57 payments, and the first 3 payments would be administered directly to the trustee, who in turn would pay the debt management company, the middleman.
No, they can't actually pay a referral source. So the middleman would charge the guy up front the first 3 payments, and then the trustee would do the 57 other payments.
There you go.
Because the maximum time is 60 months for a consumer proposal, which is like, I'm a little surprised that some of the guys out there that operate in the bankruptcy space that are on the up and up, that I have respect for, support it. But at the same time, I get that they have a competitive marketplace and they're trying to get business, but it's an underhanded way to do it, in my view. But anyway, so do people need this middleman, this marketer, or should they go directly to a bankruptcy trustee? Like if they live on, I don't know, like if they live in, I don't know, like Oshawa, close to the office, for example, and they wouldn't be a good fit for our program, but they got a ton of debt and no assets. Can they just type in Oshawa bankruptcy trustee and go direct to them? Like, is that a better way to go about it?
Yes, it's totally a better way to go about it. But as you said earlier in the show and earlier in the program, bankruptcy may not be for everybody. It is a case-by-case basis. It's depending on your circumstances, financially, income, assets. All these things are taken into consideration. It also takes into consideration who you live with. So if you're married, your spouse, while that spouse's income or that individual might not have to file the bankruptcy with you, the income is taken into the calculation equation for the bankrupt individual. So there's a lot of repercussions depending on the circumstances that need to be discussed with the trustee on a one-on-one basis. But you're right. If the situations are dire, there are cases where the individual's best choice is to file with a bankruptcy trustee and file bankruptcy rather than a consumer proposal. I've pulled open the email communication that I had with the individual from this company, the debt management company. And I just wanted to get the language that he had given to me. So the words he used was, I arrange a debt settlement with your creditors. And when I asked him to clarify what that was, because it sounded like it was a proposal, he then clarified that further to say, where is it? He said, a proposal is a debt settlement process, which is not correct. A lot of people confuse the process, and they're scared about the negative narratives, misinformation that they receive online. So it's kind of a catch-22 when the individual...
Which they realistically get a lot of the time from the bankruptcy trustee industry and consumer credit counseling.
Right.
And
it's kind of confusing that the individual who's trying to administer or put me, in this case, into a consumer proposal is advising that, it's a deceptive way to get someone to commit. And then he was also, in numbers, in terms of figures, I was providing him some information on what kind of debts I was looking at to get an indication, an idea of what kind of quote I'd receive in turn from him. His proposal was a repayment less than bankruptcy. And one of the primary focuses of a consumer proposal under the legislation indicates that a proposal must materialize a higher repayment for the creditors than bankruptcy. So when I raised this point, saying, well, I'm looking at my numbers, and if I was to file bankruptcy, I would pay X dollars, but you're saying I'll pay X dollars in this proposal plan. Why would it be less when the administration of the bankruptcy requires it to be a higher payment in a proposal? No response to that. So it was misleading information. It was inaccurate information. I just find it scrupulous that these businesses try to advertise for debt help. They don't specify on their flyer what exactly they're looking to do for you. What kind of service? Is it bankruptcy? Is it a consumer proposal? Is it a trusteeship? Is it credit counseling? Is it a debt settlement plan? They don't tell you, and then they mislead you, and then walk you over to a trustee to say this is what you're going to have to pay. It's just, in my opinion, and as you've said, it's an inappropriate practice, and it just makes more sense to go directly to the source. If you're struggling, just Google trustees in your area and figure out what the trustees can do for you.
So how do people spot the middleman so they can avoid it? Because realistically, they don't need the middleman. It's just the middleman seems to be more or far better versed in marketing skills than the bankruptcy trustees. I mean, bankruptcy trustees by their nature are basically accountants. They cross T's and dot I's. They're very methodical. I don't think that they're particularly great at marketing. And I think that the language that they can use in their marketing is somewhat limited. So that's probably why they collaborate with these middlemen, because they use far looser language that avoids things that might indicate that their credit's going to get trashed or potentially be bankrupt. So I see how that synergy works. But at the end of the day, somebody can literally save 3 payments by going directly to the trustee, or potentially lowering their monthly installment by doing it over 60 months instead of 57 months. So let's try to deal with, how do you identify avoiding the middlemen? So in my view, you should be asking them questions like, are you a bankruptcy trustee? What is the service that you provide? And they're probably going to dance around it because they, of course, want to cover it with lipstick and makeup and make it look pretty. It's like, we've talked about putting makeup on the pig before. All you do is you wipe the makeup off the pig. It's still a pig. It's garbage, right? So what they'll try to do is they'll pretty it up a little bit, sell some narrative that it's great for you. It's not going to hurt your credit. It's an alternative to bankruptcy. But at the end of the day, if they're going to walk you over to a trustee's office, and you should identify who's going to be providing the service. So I guess a good question to ask is, who fulfills the service? Who provides the get out of debt service? So you can clarify whether or not it's a trustee in that sense. So if you find an ad and you see Andrew Cooper in the flyer and it comes in the mail, and you call him up and you say, hey, Andrew, da, 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 what do you do? And then you ask Andrew, hey, Andrew, who actually fulfills the service? Who does the work to get me out of debt? And if they say something like Price Waterhouse Coopers, that's a bankruptcy trustee, or you can just Google the name of it and they'll tell you that it's a bankruptcy trustee, and you'll know that you'll be dealing with them. You could actually cut the guy out right then and there and go directly to the bankruptcy trustee and not have to deal with the middleman or giving him 3 extra payments and saving yourself some money. At least you'll get more truth from the trustee than you will from the middleman marketer, right?
Right. That's the biggest thing, is because these trustees are obviously federally regulated, federally legislated. They've had to go through specific programs and schooling to become licensed as a trustee. They're familiar with the industry. They're more familiar with the process and the program. So it's, when you're dealing with the middleman who's not licensed, the middleman who's not familiar or as familiar with the process, may not be giving you the correct information that you're trying to rely on or that you need. So it's always best to speak to the professional that knows what they're doing and who has experienced it in a longer term and regulated in that regard. So skipping the middleman makes more sense. And I was, again, looking through the email communication back and forth with this individual, and the flyer did say avoid bankruptcy, because I referenced that in the communication. So they're trying to appeal to the public to eliminate their debts but not go through bankruptcy. But ultimately what they're doing is they are still referring you to a bankruptcy trustee to administer a consumer proposal. And as you said, it can have more damage. It can remain on your credit report for a longer period of time, which of course would then have a negative effect, or a longer negative effect on your credit rating. It's just a practice that is not fully required, as much as they believe that it should be. And as you indicated, maybe the advertising is the focus that they're looking for. They're just a little bit more savvy with their advertising skills. But it's just not something that I would recommend to people.
Okay. We got a couple comments there. Dead Oxy says, let's go. Justin says, great information. Glad you're bringing more attention to this. So if you guys have questions while we're broadcasting live, you can put them in the chat and we'll try to address them on the spot. I think we've covered this, from top to bottom. There's really nothing else that needs to be said. If you're confused or you need some more clarity around what this is all about, I'm just going to post in the chat the link to the URL to Total Debt Freedom. You can book a consult with the office and talk to somebody who will offer some facts and opinions. Yeah.
Impartial.
Well, let's be honest. It's not impartial because there's a service being offered at our office to get people out of debt. But we've always told people straight up that if you're not a good fit for our program, we will refer you to something that is a better fit that will get you better results. And if that happens to be bankruptcy, we'll send you directly to a bankruptcy trustee. We've never asked them for any money. They've never paid us a dime. We have referred people to trustees in the past. So if you're not a good fit, that's how we'll go about it. But listen, if you've got over $15,000 worth of credit card debt and what you're doing isn't working, meaning you're seeing yourself in this never-ending cycle of throwing money at monthly installments or interest payments that aren't bringing down the balance, well, you can keep doing that for the rest of your life. We've seen statements that, pile up saying that, you could be doing this for well over 100 years. If you just make the minimum monthly installments or give the office a call or book a consult. Talk to either Bryce or Mark or somebody in there that can at least offer you a view that might be different from what you've considered. Usually trying to borrow your way out of debt, like the conventional way that people go about it is they try to borrow the way out of debt with a debt consolidation loan. But if you're carrying a ton of credit card debt and the balances aren't going down, that's not a viable option. Nonprofit credit counseling we've talked about before on this channel. You can watch some of the other videos. By the way, guys, there's lots of great content on this channel. So you can watch, like anything from the last couple of years is still up to date and relevant even right now. Debt negotiations, the approach that the law firm takes, Andrew heads that up. Anything you want to say to guys before we wrap this up, Andrew?
No, you've covered it well. It's a matter of you got to do your research. Ultimately, you got to look into what you're doing. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, that looks like it's great, I'm just going to move forward with that. You need to ask questions, and you need to know what questions you need to ask so that you can get to the bottom of what you're going to be getting yourself involved in. Yeah.
And Andrew is a licensed legal professional, so this is not a middleman sort of approach where we're going to walk you across the hall and take the first 3 payments from a trustee. So definitely consider it if you're stuck with where you're at right now. We'll be doing these every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you're notified when these go live, because that's the only opportunity we'll be able to take live questions. So we will see you guys in the next broadcast. Have an amazing weekend.
Yeah, take care, guys.